It was a moonless night when Jordan decided to take the long road home after a late shift. The highway was empty, swallowed in darkness except for the weak beam of his truck's headlights cutting through the mist. He didn't usually take this route, but the main freeway had been closed for repairs, forcing him into the winding backroads that ran through miles of thick forest. The air felt unnaturally still, and the longer he drove, the more he realized how oppressive the silence had become. Even with his windows rolled up, he swore he should have been able to hear the crickets, the distant hoot of owls, something, but there was nothing. Just the low rumble of his engine and the occasional crackle of static on the radio, like a faint whisper that cut in and out. Halfway through the stretch of road, his headlights caught something at the tree line. For a split second, he thought he saw a figure. It wasn't walking, though, it was standing unnaturally still, like it had been waiting for him. Jordan squinted, slowing his truck just slightly, but as the beam swept over the spot again, the figure was gone. He forced out a laugh, shaking his head, trying to blame exhaustion. But deep down, something in his chest tightened. He turned the radio off, not wanting to hear the static anymore, and drove on with only the hum of his tires on asphalt. Another 10 minutes passed, and then his truck's lights flickered once, twice, before stabilizing. Jordan cursed under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter. That's when he noticed the shadows on the side of the road weren't behaving normally. They seemed to shift in the corner of his vision, like they were moving against the light instead of with it. His throat dried, and he pressed harder on the gas. But the faster he drove, the heavier the air inside the cab felt, like the night itself was pressing in on him. Just when he thought he was out of the woods, he saw it again. The figure. This time it was in the middle of the road, pale, tall, motionless. Its head seemed wrong, tilted too far to the side, like it was broken at the neck. Jordan slammed on the brakes, his seatbelt locking against his chest as the truck screeched. His headlights caught its face, or what should have been a face. Instead, there were only deep, hollow sockets, blacker than the night behind them, staring right into him. For a heartbeat, he was frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. And then, in the blink of an eye, it wasn't there anymore. The road stretched empty before him, silent and endless. His hands shook on the steering wheel, his chest heaving. He considered turning around, but he knew going back meant driving into more of the same endless black woods. He whispered to himself, trying to steady his breathing, "It's nothing. Just my mind playing tricks." But as he pressed the gas and rolled forward again, something scraped against the roof of his truck, like nails dragging slowly across metal. The screech across the roof of Jordan's truck was sharp, metallic, like something heavy with claws dragging deliberately just to let him know it was there. His heart pounded so violently it hurt his ribs. Instinct screamed at him not to look, to just keep driving, but curiosity and fear gnawed harder. Slowly, almost against his will, he tilted his head toward the driver's side window, half expecting to see a shadow peering down. There was nothing. The road ahead remained empty, the mist thickening into rolling curtains that swallowed his headlights. His hands were clammy against the steering wheel, his knuckles pale from gripping too tightly. He pressed the accelerator, but the truck groaned, shuddered, and then the dashboard lights flickered. The engine coughed once, twice, before dying completely. The silence that followed was unbearable. No hum, no music, no sound of tires, just dead air pressing into his ears. Jordan cursed under his breath, slamming his palm against the wheel. The forest around him loomed like a wall of black. He turned the key in the ignition, nothing. Not even a sputter. Then, as if mocking him, the radio came alive with that same ghostly static. But this time, the static wasn't random. It rose and fell, almost forming words, like broken whispers bleeding into his truck. He leaned closer, straining to hear. It said his name. Clear as day, through the static, something whispered, "Jordan." He lurched back, his pulse spiking. "No, no, no," he muttered, reaching to shut the radio off. But the knob spun uselessly in his hand. The static grew louder, harsher, until it sounded like hundreds of voices all screaming at once, before suddenly cutting off. Silence again. And then, a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the back window of his cab. Jordan froze, every hair on his body standing straight. He refused to look. He knew, deep down, that whatever was outside wasn't human. But the pressure of not looking was unbearable, like a weight crushing him. Slowly, with trembling hands, he adjusted the rearview mirror. In the reflection, he saw it. The figure was crouched in the bed of his truck, its elongated limbs twisted in impossible angles, its hollow sockets fixed directly on him. Even though the glass separated them, Jordan felt those empty eyes burrowing into his skull. Its mouth stretched wide, not like a human mouth, but like skin tearing, into a jagged, gaping grin. Jordan's breath caught in his throat. He snapped his head forward, refusing to look again. He needed the truck to start. His hands shook as he turned the key over and over. Finally, with a guttural roar, the engine sputtered back to life, the headlights blazing again. Without hesitation, he floored it. Gravel spat from the tires as he shot down the road, heart hammering like a war drum. But even as the speedometer climbed, the sound of scraping returned, this time across the back window. He didn't dare look. The truck felt heavier, like something was riding along. He could hear it shift, dragging its limbs across the roof. And then, silence. Jordan risked a glance at the rearview mirror. Nothing. The truck bed was empty. Relief washed through him, shaky but powerful, and he let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He kept driving, whispering, almost out. Almost out. But that hope shattered when the road ahead split. He didn't remember a fork. The GPS on his phone was frozen, the screen glitching, the map shifting like static on the radio. Left was darker, the trees crowding like they wanted to swallow the road whole. Right looked no better, the mist curling low and thick, swallowing the asphalt. As he slowed to decide, the cab filled with a foul stench, rotting meat, thick and choking. Jordan gagged, covering his nose. His eyes darted to the passenger seat. It wasn't empty anymore. The figure sat beside him, twisted sideways in the seat, its hollow sockets inches from his face. Its torn grin stretched wider as the smell intensified, and in a voice that was more like wind scraping broken glass, it whispered, "You shouldn't have looked." Jordan screamed, wrenching the wheel hard to the right. The truck swerved, tires squealing as it plunged into the mist-covered road. His vision blurred with terror, his chest heaving as the figure vanished, but the seat beside him still bore the impression of something that had been there. The mist closed around the truck like a living thing, and the deeper he drove, the more he realized he hadn't escaped. He'd chosen the wrong road. The mist swallowed everything, wrapping Jordan's truck in a cocoon of shifting white. His headlights were useless now, they only lit a wall of fog that seemed to bend and curl with every movement, like it was alive. His chest was tight, breath shallow, every instinct screaming that he wasn't on a normal road anymore. He gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles ached, but the steering felt loose, almost disconnected, as if the truck was gliding over something other than asphalt. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, he couldn't tell. The clock on the dashboard had frozen, the glowing numbers stuck at 3:13. His phone screen was still glitching, symbols he didn't recognize flickering in and out like some corrupted code. Jordan wiped sweat from his forehead, muttering to himself, "Stay calm, it's just a road, just a damn road." Then came the sound. At first, it was faint, almost like wind. But it grew clearer with every passing second, footsteps. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, padding in rhythm around the truck. Jordan's stomach turned as he realized they weren't human steps. They were too light, too quick, skittering against the unseen ground just beyond the fog. He pressed harder on the gas, but the speedometer didn't move. The truck kept rolling forward at the same crawling pace no matter how much he floored it. Suddenly, something slammed against the passenger side window. Jordan flinched, nearly losing control of the wheel. He turned, expecting that same eyeless figure, but nothing was there, only the mist pressed against the glass, as though it had weight. Another slam came from the driver's side. Then the roof. Then the back window. The pounding was relentless, closing in from every direction. His pulse raced as he screamed over the noise, "Leave me alone." And just like that, silence. The mist ahead began to thin, revealing a stretch of road bathed in pale light. Relief flickered through him, though it was short-lived. The light wasn't from the moon. It came from something much taller, much brighter, something standing at the center of the road. It was a tower of figures. Dozens of bodies, twisted and fused together, their hollow sockets glowing faintly as if lit from within. Their mouths opened in silent screams, jaws unhinged far wider than humanly possible. The tower bent, shifting unnaturally, and Jordan realized it was moving toward him. He slammed the brakes, the truck jerking violently to a stop. The headlights cut across the fused mass, revealing faces he swore he recognized, people from town, co-workers, even his neighbor's missing kid whose photo he'd seen on flyers. Each face was distorted, mouths agape, eyes gouged into hollow pits. Jordan's stomach churned as bile rose in his throat. The tower leaned closer, and in a single, unified voice that sounded like static and whispering layered together, it spoke, "Stay with us." "No!" Jordan screamed, throwing the truck into reverse. The tires screeched, but instead of moving backward, the truck lurched forward. Straight toward the towering mass. The wheel spun in his hands like it wasn't his to control anymore. He fought it, yanking back, slamming gears, but nothing worked. The truck slowed to a crawl as if dragged by invisible chains. The fused figures reached out, arms stretching far too long, their hands clawing toward his windshield. A dozen palms slapped against the glass at once, leaving streaks of black tar that hissed and smoked. The stench of rot filled the cab, choking him. In panic, Jordan grabbed the door handle and threw it open, stumbling out onto the road. The mist clung to his skin like wet cloth, freezing cold, but he didn't care. He bolted into the fog, away from the truck, away from the tower of things that should not exist. His boots pounded against the ground, though the road beneath him no longer felt like asphalt, it was soft, spongy, like running on flesh. He didn't stop until his lungs burned. But when he looked around, the road was gone. The truck was gone. The forest was gone. He stood in an endless plain of black, stretching in every direction. Above him, the sky wasn't sky at all, but a ceiling of writhing shadows, shifting like waves. And then he saw them. Figures. Dozens. Hundreds. They stood in the distance, motionless, all facing him. Each one eyeless. Each one grinning with torn mouths. Jordan staggered backward, but the figures moved in unison, stepping closer, their movements jerky, unnatural. Their grins widened with every step. And from the black plain beneath his boots, something rose slowly, pale, skeletal fingers breaking through the surface, clutching at his ankles. Jordan screamed, kicking wildly, but more hands emerged, wrapping around his legs, his waist, pulling him down into the black. His voice echoed through the vast nothing, but no one could hear. The last thing he saw before the ground swallowed him to the chest was the sea of eyeless faces closing in, their whispers filling the air like 1,000 radios tuned to static. And just when he thought he'd vanish entirely into the dark, the grip loosened. The figures stopped. The plane grew silent. Jordan stood alone again. But he wasn't free. The silence was worse than the whispers. Much worse. Jordan's body trembled as he stood in the vast, silent plain. The black ground stretched infinitely, the ceiling of shadows above shifting like something alive, breathing, waiting. His chest rose and fell in ragged gasps, sweat and mist clinging to his skin. He didn't dare move, afraid the figures would return, afraid the hands would rise again from beneath the ground to drag him into whatever abyss waited below. The silence pressed against him like a living thing, thick and suffocating. He swallowed hard, whispering into the nothing, "Where am I?" His own voice sounded wrong here, like it didn't belong, echoing strangely, bouncing back to him distorted, deeper, as if another voice were speaking alongside his. Then, far ahead, a light appeared. Small at first, like the glow of a candle. Jordan's heart leapt, maybe a way out. He forced his legs to move, each step heavy, the black ground shifting under his boots like soft clay. The closer he walked, the brighter the light grew, but something about it unsettled him. It wasn't steady like fire, nor clean like a bulb. It pulsed, like it was alive. When he drew closer, he realized it was a lantern. But the lantern wasn't hanging from a post, nor resting on the ground. It dangled from the outstretched hand of a figure. A tall, gaunt man stood there, skin pale and stretched thin over bones, his face obscured by the hood of a ragged cloak. The lantern's glow illuminated nothing beyond the stranger, as if the light existed only for him. Jordan hesitated, his instincts screaming not to trust. But the man raised his head slightly, and though Jordan couldn't see his eyes, he heard a low, rasping voice. "You shouldn't have left the road." Jordan's stomach turned cold. What is this place?" he stammered. The hooded man tilted his head. "A place between. Few arrive here by chance. Fewer ever leave." His voice was calm, almost conversational, but beneath it was an undertone of something inhuman, like a second voice speaking in tandem. Jordan's mind spun. "I don't care what it is, I just want to get back. I just want to go home." The man chuckled, a dry, hollow sound. "Home? You crossed too far into the dark. Home doesn't remember you anymore." Jordan's chest tightened, panic clawing at him. "No. That's not true. This isn't real. I'll wake up, The lantern swayed slightly in the man's hand. The shadows above writhed violently, responding to his words. "Real?" the man rasped. "You think the things you saw, the figure, the tower, were tricks of the mind? No. They are what walks here. They noticed you the moment you strayed off your path. They always notice." Jordan backed up a step, shaking his head. "I didn't mean to come here. I was just driving. I didn't choose this road." The man leaned closer, the lantern's glow casting jagged shadows across his face. Where eyes should have been were hollow sockets, the same as the creatures Jordan had seen. But unlike them, his mouth wasn't torn into a grin, it was sewn shut with black thread, yet somehow the rasping words still escaped. "You looked at them," the man said. "That is enough." Jordan stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. The ground behind him quivered, and he froze, afraid to move further. The hooded figure extended the lantern toward him, the flame inside pulsing faster, almost like a heartbeat. "There is only one way out," the man said. "Follow the light. But beware, it will not save you. It will only show you how much further you have to fall." Jordan wanted to refuse, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The plain was endless, the shadows above shifting like a ceiling that might collapse at any second. Reluctantly, he stepped closer, the lantern's glow washing across his face. The hooded man turned, gliding silently forward, and Jordan followed. They walked for what felt like hours, the lantern's circle of light the only thing keeping the crushing darkness at bay. Jordan's legs ached, his mind spinning, but he didn't dare stop. He noticed shapes moving in the black just outside the lantern's glow, crawling, twitching things that scattered whenever the light neared them. Finally, the ground beneath his boots changed. No longer soft and fleshy, it became solid, hard, like asphalt. His chest heaved with relief as he saw painted lines appear beneath the mist. A road. His road. His truck, dimly visible ahead, headlights still burning weakly. Jordan's heart soared. "I'm back," he cried, breaking into a sprint. He reached the truck, yanking the door open, collapsing into the driver's seat. The dashboard flickered to life. The clock read 3:14. The engine roared as he turned the key. But when he glanced up, his blood turned to ice. The hooded figure sat in the passenger seat, lantern resting in its lap, the sewn mouth stretched as though straining to break free. The rasping voice filled the cab, deeper now, hungrier. "You didn't ask where the road leads." The truck lurched forward on its own, tires screeching as it barreled into the mist again. And Jordan realized with horror he wasn't going home. He was being driven deeper. The truck sped forward on its own, the wheel jerking beneath Jordan's hands though he wasn't steering. The mist swallowed the world outside, and the hooded figure sat motionless in the passenger seat, lantern flickering faintly on its lap. Jordan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, his heart battering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Stop this," he screamed, voice cracking. But the hooded figure didn't move. Its stitched mouth strained, bulging as though something inside it wanted out, black thread digging into pale skin. Jordan's chest tightened as he realized the rasping voice he heard wasn't coming from the figure, it was in his own head, vibrating in his skull. "You looked. You listened. Now you belong." The truck's speed climbed, the speedometer needle shaking violently as it passed 100, 120, 140. Jordan's body pressed against the seat, breath shallow and ragged. The road ahead twisted impossibly, spiraling into shapes no highway could make, sharp turns bending into loops, the painted lines glowing faintly like veins beneath skin. His vision blurred as he fought to stay conscious, nausea twisting his gut. He clutched the wheel tighter, knuckles aching. "I don't belong here," he shouted, but the rasping voice hissed back, "You do now." Suddenly, the truck jerked violently sideways, slamming Jordan's head into the window. He groaned, blinking back stars, and when his vision cleared, the hooded figure was gone. The passenger seat was empty. The lantern, however, hung from the rearview mirror, its flame pulsing faster, brighter. The glow reflected in the windshield, and Jordan realized the mist outside wasn't mist anymore. It was faces. Thousands of them, pressed against the glass, hollow eyes staring in, mouths opening and closing in silent screams. His chest heaved as he tried to look away, but the faces pressed closer, the glass groaning under their weight. One by one,